We're a good example because we're very different, the yin and to the yang in a lot of ways,
Mhm,
in the way that we think and we operate in our life experience
mhm.
and all of that. And it makes me think even back to our conversation on ancestry, where I much of my family through the state of Utah ended up there via the Mormons, and they
Mhm,
did a really good job at they truly value genealogy and family and things like that. And so,
mhm.
although my family's not directly connected to them anymore, I can go on their family search. I think it's called family search, and I can go on there, right? And every time I log up in there, there's more information, more people have put pictures or even like
Yeah,
anecdotes and stories and journals. And so I have all this insight into my ancestry I mean, I've even got a book from one of my ancestors that I was named
right.
after
Oh,
and things
wow.
like that. I have all this to go off of, and it's been very helpful. And then from your side, like I mean, essentially on one side, you are descending from the whole slave port. And so obviously records are going to be slim.
Yeah,
And I think, in a way, it's easy for me to say, well, I have an advantage over you because I have all of these stories and things. And I think that those things are very beneficial and I value them
yeah,
significantly.
yeah.
But then also when I hear you talk about it, it's from a whole new element and you have to start from somewhere else. And so, while I might be imagining a picture, that could also be reductive in some ways, like it could reduce it in some ways because now I'm using one photo from one moment in time to imagine this in such a way. Whereas, you're coming from a much more, I don't know, a foundation of it, a organic place from it. And so I think our maybe neither of our experiences are better or worse than the other. They're just different and we have different resources available. But I think in those senses, we learn so much from each other and how we interpret it. And, just again, going back to our life experience and how it's been so different. And I think what's I've been on a journey for a long time of self discovery
Mm,
and all of that. But when it was really able to take root for me and I was really able to grow and flower, you might say that the seed was planted a long time ago and that there was some things growing. But when I was able to flower was because of our relationship and because it gave me the permission. I never, on one element, I never had to worry about if I was going to be loved or cared about when I was done with the day or whatever I was doing. I've never had to worry about that. And just that, that feeling of love and belonging allows, significant growth and boosts that. But also the differences that we have has allowed me to like, it's being with you every day for so long. It's been and having all these conversations and everything. It's filled a hole that was there. Going back to grandmother Rita, she said you can't be WHOLE whole if you've got a big HOLE in there. You got to find something to fill that with. And I struggled with that for so long, and I think it's still there a little bit, but
mm,
just the relationship and between us, and then even like the different podcasts and the
mm.
students and everything, all the people that I am able to interact with and learn from, and not to mention people that have transitioned on and I have their videos and their books and everything. But I think that's what's essentially helped me to make me whole. And I think going back to what I was saying earlier, I was so disconnected before and it wasn't really my fault, but I had to do so much work to try to reconnect. And if you have very little or no connection at first, right, you got to start with a little bit here, a little bit there, and you become connected. And that connection grows out just like the mycelium network you were mentioning earlier. And then next thing you know, you have a whole web of connections and patterns there
Absolutely.
that deliver for me all the time. Like work I've did in the past or in the previous or something I learned or something we did before will come back all the time to bless me in the future. And we've even talked about it in the sense of the kind of music or the stuff that you're consuming will come back to you and help you when you need it. And I
Mhm.
think that, even in line with what you were talking about, ancestors showing up. And I think a lot of that is if I look back to childhood, I feel those moments. I can remember those moments like viscerally, it's palpable for me if I go back to that time. And it's like the world from very early on is like, nope, 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 nope. Forget about that. Forget about that. Stop listening to that. Stop listening to that. You need to eat into all the way to where it's evolved, like what you were saying, where your vision is limited to your phone, and maybe before it was a television box
Mhm.
or whatever. But you know, I think I've been able to reconnect with a lot of that and feel confidence in doing so, and have the space and the freedom to sit down and listen to the voice or the whatever you want to call it, the innerness that's coming for me. And
Mhm.
I just want to say thank you to you. I'm just glad you brought that up. You brought that forward, Ukumbwa, but thank you for that. I think I believe I would have still had the opportunity to grow, but you really gave me the freedom and the space to be able to really do it on a larger level. And over the last whatever for many years it's gonna go, how many years it's been, almost 10 years, it's allowed me to really evolve into who I think that I've always meant to become. So I appreciate you.